Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today we are finally going to take a look at 3 new reveals from Games Workshop. Okay, look, I know this is a bit late, but I've been having horrendous technical issues all week. I sat down to record on Monday and could only record for 15 seconds at a time, and it turns out I just had massive hard drive failure on 4 different drives. Software thing, not hardware thing, all sorted now, but dear God have I been wanting to make videos and just been completely unable to, and it's driven me a little bit mad. Luckily though, we've got some new stuff to take a look at. Firstly, we've got Sub-Commander Darkstrider. Darkstrider's getting a new model. This looks to be the Tau's basically token new model for their new codex, which is on the way, and we'll take a look at some rules tomorrow. This is actually kind of a good model. I will say that sometimes it feels like Games Workshop struggles to know what to do with non-Space Marine characters. In some cases, some of them end up being a little bit plain. When it comes to like your typical Imperium characters, it's kind of simple. There's like a formula you can follow. You just put more shiny stuff on them, more filigree, more purity seals, and that's about it. You can get away with making any kind of character just by adding more and more busy, and sometimes it feels like that's what they do. When it comes to things like the Tau though, especially when you've got a Tau character that is not in some sort of customised battlesuit, it becomes a little bit more tricky. And I will say, I think they've done a really good job with Darkstrider, because I think this Darkstrider, whilst it's not particularly fancy, still looks different enough. Not loads of extra stuff going on, there's not a bunch of extra armour or a bunch of extra fancy decoration, but there's like a nice combination of pose and like paraphernalia that kind of make Darkstrider stand out. I think I prefer this version to the previous version, which is this. It kind of looks fine, but also kind of maybe just looks a bit like a Pathfinder. Nothing particularly special going on there. Whereas the new version has got these little tiny drones, little stools to sit on if you get a tired leg, and things like the visor with the heads-up display. All of that being on one side of the face now is nice. I think it just makes it a bit cleaner to look at. That kind of extra antenna going on with the backpack as well. I don't know, I think in terms of trying to come up with a stealthy, scouty character that should not be covered in decorations and ornaments and all kinds of fancy nonsense, it's kind of a challenge to make something that is that bit more unique than the rest of the line, and I think they've actually achieved that with this model. I think it looks pretty good. Got some extra detail down here, and I have to admit I do really like those little drones. The little 3-legged drones, I'm all about it. I don't know why they're as cute as they are, but they are. Look at them, they're adorable. They just want to help. They just want to go out there and have a look around and report back, and I'm here for it. I'm loving it. All in all, I think this is a pretty solid update, and I think it definitely is an improvement over this version. And of course, the bonus is that this is not going to be resin. This is going to be plastic, whereas the old one is fine cast, which no one likes. Everyone hates fine cast. It's terrible. We all know it. Of course, the downside is that the current one is 15 quid, and there is no way that this is going to be 15 quid. Such is the price of updating a model and taking it out of a material that Games Workshop should have left alone anyway, let's be honest. Now, on to some Horus Heresy lads. We have Fafnir Rann, and we have Dominion Zephon. And we'll start with Fafnir, because to be honest, of the two, he is the one I like the most. But that's not to say that they're not bad models. I think they're actually both pretty decent models. On this one particularly, I think there's a nice balance that's been struck between making it busy and not making it too busy. It's still relatively clean, but there are some nice kind of touches and details here that mark this out as being something special as opposed to just being a generic captain. The axes are perhaps a little bit too big, but then again, I'm kind of a fan of oversized weapons on Space Marines anyway. Not like that. Get your mind out of the gutter. So it doesn't bother me all that much, but in the artwork that's shown for him, then definitely not quite of the same scale. These look fully like two-handed axes to me. Then again, this is a Space Marine and he's wearing power armor, so by that point, probably a two-handed axe to a normal person is very easily a one-handed axe to a Space Marine. It may be a little excessive, but I kind of like it because of that. That's very much a subjective me thing, though. The massive shield on his back, I like the idea of it. I think perhaps for me it sort of fuzzies the silhouette a little bit. It kind of looks a little bit out of place, a little bit odd. You do have this like big old chunk of metal resting on the back of this model, and it kind of makes him seem a lot wider than he actually is. It gives him additional girth, which I don't know if this is not necessarily the kind of girth that I want off a model. It just looks a bit blocky. That being said, there is some cool detail on the shield. So it's like a mix of that's a bit much, that's a bit hefty. It perhaps makes the silhouette a bit muddy, but on the other hand, that's a cool shield, and I like the fact that he's got a sword attached to the shield. Really, you just can't say that he hasn't got enough weapons. He's got a number of armaments here, and I kind of like that. The whole like more weapons than you could feasibly carry look is definitely a strong statement, and I like it. I will say as well, I don't think the head is too bad on this guy. I think it's actually an okay head. I don't think it's too rough. I think it's they've done an all right job with it. I have to admit, of the two of these, I would say that this is definitely my favourite of the two. But that also maybe because I have about 10 uses for this model that is not anything to do with the Imperial Fists or Fafnir Rann. Like, I would get this for multiple other purposes, and none of them would involve painting it yellow. So that kind of automatically shoves it up in the old estimation there, because I just want to make mad captains out of it, or ridiculous, like, bloodthirsty chapter masters. How could you not? Look at him. Now, something to note about this and Zephon as well is that apparently this is going to be plastic. Now, that's an interesting move since these are Horus Heresy characters. If they're shifting character stuff over to Games Workshop and making them plastic rather than resin, that would, I think, probably like open things up a little bit more in terms of getting people into things, just because you have a cheaper option when it comes to getting things like named characters. That being said, that also splits the line pretty severely between the two, where you're going to be getting like your named characters from one place, but a lot of the vehicles, a lot of the specialist infantry and actual special units and the like will be from Forge World, which maybe just muddies things even further. On the one hand, plastic better for me personally, but splitting the range as badly as like having multiple things that were plastic that equivalents are actually in resin depending on when they were released, and I don't know, it feels like a bit messy, like in an organisational way, I guess. Now, the other one, Zephon. Oh dear, okay. So, this isn't a bad model. This is not a bad model to me. This is a perfectly fine model. The pose is a little bit awkward, but quite often jump pack poses are. The issue that I have with this is it's not the model itself, because I like the model itself. It's just not a model of Zephon, is the issue that I'm having with it. Master of Mankind paints a fairly clear picture of Zephon, which is not like this, and it's something that puzzles me slightly, because Master of Mankind, unless his appearance has changed, unless there is another descriptor for Zephon, it specifically mentions him having a Mark III helm. It talks about the fact that he has a Mark III helm with silver filigree around it. That's not a Mark III helm. A Beaky is not a Mark III helm, and it doesn't have silver filigree, it's got gold and a gem. And so that's like a little thing where it's like, I don't understand why that change was made. Now, admittedly, I haven't read is he in one other or two? I think he's in like one other book, and is he in another short story, which I haven't got to. So it could be that is explained away, but my kind of prevailing memory of Zephon is a Mark III helm, which this isn't, and the bionic foot is specifically called out as being like a 3 or 4 clawed, I think 3 on the front, 1 on the back, like setup. So it's not foot shaped. It's more kind of like a warhound's foot, but obviously a lot smaller, because that would be mental. I have those details in my head for this character, and they're not here, and it just confuses me, because it's like, why have those changes been made? I don't think this is a bad model. I think it's a perfectly good model, but I would not look at that and immediately think Zephon if they hadn't pointed it out. Just because there's a couple of key details that were explicitly described in the book where he first shows up, and those details aren't part of this model. It's just like, I don't understand why the change was made. Same thing with the foot. Technically, there's nothing wrong with that. It's fine. But it's just not what was described. And when it comes to things that are that simple, that mechanical, that easy to have immediate visual reference for, not sticking to that feels a little bit weird. Like, I don't know, it's not bad, it's just not in any way what I pictured, because they were very clear in Master of Mankind as to what he had. So it's like a bit of a cognitive dissonance thing. It's like, I quite like the model, but it's not the model of the guy that I thought it was, because he doesn't look like that. There's also the fact that he's blonde and they're painting him with black hair, which is just a really weird choice to make. Like, I don't quite understand why that was done. Just flat out why you would paint him with black hair. Again, he's called out specifically as having that thing, and he doesn't have that, which is just a bit weird. Just a bit odd. I don't know why those choices were made. Maybe he does have that helmet, and maybe his foot is different in a later book. I'm not sure, but it definitely doesn't fit what I've imagined him to look like, which, I don't know, just kind of throws me a little bit. That being said, I don't think there's anything wrong with the model necessarily. It's a perfectly fine Blood Angels model. It looks good. Just doesn't look like Zephon to me. But the question is, what do you think? Do you reckon this is just a case of, well, he's going off a newer appearance that I've missed? Or is this a case of just random changes for the sake of random changes? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon, video, subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like, don't click it if you don't want to. And as always, there's an affiliate link in the description for Element Games, which you can use to support the channel if you would like, and an affiliate link for Noble Knight Games in the US. I'll leave it in your capable hands. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.